We always think our lives are defined by the big, flashy events, the graduations, the weddings, the huge career moves. But what if the moments that really shape us, the ones that build the very foundation of who we are actually the small, quiet, almost invisible ones? Just think about it for a second. When you look back at your own family, what are the first memories that pop into your head? Is it the big, planned vacation, or is it something way smaller, something you almost forgot? Well, today we're going to dive into a story that makes a really powerful case that it's the small stuff that matters most.
And this quote right here, this is pretty much the heart of everything we're talking about today. We're going to see exactly how this idea plays out through the story of one family and the memories of a son looking back at his parents, not through some big speeches, but through these tiny little moments that, well, they revealed everything.
So let's start with the father. From the outside, this man was an absolute fortress. He was the protector, the provider, the rock.
This was the kind of guy who just radiated complete confidence. He made his family feel like all the treasures in the world were right there for the taking, even when, behind the scenes, things were much, much tougher. He was their shield, and this is where you really see the weight he was carrying. See, back in their hometown of Jerba, he was a respected, well-off master carpenter. He had household help, a cleaner, a cook, a nanny. He even gave his daughter piano lessons. But when the family moved to Israel, everything changed. He became a simple factory worker trying to support a family of 10 on a laborer's salary. But he never let his kids feel that struggle, not once. He hid it all away, making sure they grew up feeling like they had absolutely everything they could ever need.
So, if that's the image he projected, who was he really? What was actually going on behind that stoic, unshakable wall? And this is where those small moments become so incredibly important, because they were like the only little cracks where his true nature could shine through. And you know how his kids caught a glimpse of that true nature? Often, it was through his tears, a rare and powerful sight that showed them the deeply sensitive man hiding inside.
Oh, this story is it's incredible. So, as a young boy, the author is watching his dad, this master carpenter, spend forever looking for a tiny scrap of wood for a customer. And the boy's thinking, why not just cut a new piece? This is just stinginess. Fast forward years later, his father's gone, and he finds himself in that same workshop doing the exact same thing, searching for a tiny scrap. And in that one moment, it hits him like a ton of bricks. It wasn't stinginess, it was respect. Total respect for the material, for the work, and the memory of how he misjudged his dad, it brought him to tears. Not just then, but every single time he told that story.
Now, this father was also incredibly strict, especially about dating. He was convinced that relationships were just a distraction from studying, which he saw as the only real path to success. So you can just imagine the tension when his son and his girlfriend accidentally fall asleep holding hands on the porch one night.
The son wakes up completely terrified, expecting to get yelled at. But instead, his father quietly brings them both hot drinks. No anger, nothing. Later, his sister fills him in on what happened next. Their dad went into another room and just wept, realizing that maybe, just maybe, he'd been too hard on his kids. And that moment right there shows the war inside him, the tough fortress wrestling with this incredibly emotional heart.
But for all these glimpses of sensitivity, his core principles were made of iron. He once told his son, "There is only one illness for which there is no cure." And his son is bracing himself, expecting to hear cancer or some other terrible disease. But his father's answer was simple: laziness. That one word and that one moment became the guiding principle for his son's entire life.
Okay, so let's switch gears and talk about the mother. If the father was this complex fortress of strength and hidden emotion, she was this beacon of warmth, simplicity, and just pure, unwavering faith. Her love was a quiet, constant thing. She was the one who'd bring milk and almonds to her kids while they were studying late into the night, just nurturing their dreams without ever needing to say a word.
This quote just perfectly captures her innocent, trusting soul. So one day, her husband is looking at the bill from the grocer, where she'd buy things on credit, and he realizes they've been totally overcharged. When he points it out to her, she just replies, with complete sincerity, "Well, if the grocer doesn't steal, how will he make a living?" Her world was just that simple and that pure.
And for her, the move to Israel wasn't some big geopolitical shift, it was a spiritual journey. She didn't live in a country called Israel, she lived in the Holy Land. She didn't speak Hebrew, she spoke the Holy Tongue. In her world, it was just impossible for a Jewish person to be a thief or a murderer in this sacred place. It was this worldview of pure, unshakable faith that gave the family a moral compass just as steady and powerful as the father's pragmatism.
So when you put these two people together, this complex, secretly soft-hearted father and this simple, deeply faithful mother, what kind of legacy do they actually leave behind? What was the true inheritance they passed on to their kids?
I mean, this family's history is just astounding. It's a line that goes all the way back to an ancestor adopted by a sultan, to generations who served American consuls since George Washington's time, to these respected master carpenters. And then, a complete reset. The father lands in Israel and starts all over as a factory worker. But through sheer dignity and leading by example, he raises the next generation to become these incredibly successful engineers. Talk about resilience.
So clearly, the wealth they inherited wasn't financial. They had very, very little of that. The real inheritance was a set of values: learn, work hard, be grateful for what you have, and build your family on a foundation of love and personal example, not on things.
And you can literally see that inheritance alive and kicking today. Just recently, the author's grandson called him, just buzzing with excitement, saying, "Grandpa, I have an idea for another book." That lesson from his great-grandfather, that laziness is the only incurable disease, it's been transformed into the spark of creativity and drive, passed down 3 generations later.
And that brings us right back to the beginning, doesn't it? This entire family saga, this incredible legacy, it wasn't built on big speeches or grand gestures. It was built on a shared piece of wood in a workshop, an unexpected cup of hot chocolate on a porch, and a deeply held belief about the value of hard work. It really makes you wonder, right? When it's all said and done, what small moments are going to be the ones that tell your story?